What's up, everybody? Welcome to our channel, For Collectors, a channel that's for collectors. I'm Theo. My channel is called Clemente Collector. And today I wanted to talk about something that I've heard on some live streams recently. Are card dealers actually bad for the hobby? And another thing I want to cover with this dealer is what advice would they give to somebody that's thinking about being a dealer starting in 2024? So let's get to that next after the intro.
Welcome to For Collectors.
Okay, we're live. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hey, Theo, thanks for having me. I never thought about myself being bad for the hobby, but it'll be an interesting conversation.
Yeah, let's start off with we're gonna get to our card dealers bad for the hobby, but let's start off with how many shows have you been a dealer at so far this year?
I've set up at 3 different shows, and I've set up at 3 different shows in the last 5 weeks. So,
Okay, and how would you describe the atmosphere at the shows this year so far?
well, so I've been to 5 shows total, and I've set up at 3 of those shows, and I've really been pleasantly surprised at the amount of turnout, the amount of traffic, and the amount of sales that I've made. It's been, I don't know, it hasn't slowed down in the last 2 years for me, 3 years for me. So I've been pleased.
So, that's a good point. So if you could think back 2 years ago, you feel like the show traffic and everything is almost the same the last 3 years, basically, or 2 years.
Sure. And matter of fact, I went to a show. One of the first ones I went to this year, and it might have something to do with market size too. But I went to one with Billy Ballgame and a couple other of my friends just to walk through, and it was in St. Louis, and it was a busy show, and I don't know. I think my foot traffic as a dealer has become better because people are recognizing who I am and where I normally sit at a show. So I have those people, repeat customers coming by. And so I think that's made me even busier at some of these shows.
Gotcha. Well, I know at times, just from going to some shows, I know at times there's that rush hour when maybe it's a nice time of the day and you have the most foot traffic. And with you being a semi-celebrity now, how do you balance talking to your the people who you're friends with now and answering people's questions that could just be buyers? Is that hard for you?
Well, I don't know about this semi-celebrity or not, but you know what? I do this for fun, and
Yeah.
uh, and setting up at shows is just another way for me to, I don't know, share my joy for the hobby with other like-minded people. So, for instance, I just did a show in Arkansas, Bentonville, Arkansas, and I did a video about it. I think I released it yesterday. And there's a couple messages on there saying, "Hey, I wanted to come by your table and visit with you, but you always had somebody there. And
Yeah.
you're always visiting somebody."
Yeah.
And you know, I hate that. I hate that I missed somebody because I was already visiting with somebody. But it's if you're visiting, there's no lull time. You got people that coming in and they're marching around and they're on a mission to find some cards, and then it might get slow. A lot of it depends on, the crowd depends on the weather. It depends on the time of year. It depends on if there's another show going on at the same time, not too far away. There's a lot of factors in that. But if you're being a semi-celebrity and visiting with everybody that comes by, well, your show goes by fast. So,
All right, you're a superstar to Scott. Let's let's talk about vintage. So so you specialize in vintage. I think I'm still trying to fill out like a lot of card shows. It feels like a lot of especially small card shows. It feels like vintage has like maybe 20% of the tables. But like, so what percentage of vintage are at some of these shows you've been going to, and what's your overall thought on interest level in vintage? Would you say that a third of the people at the show like vintage? Would you say a quarter? Like, what people that walk into that show actually care about vintage? I would ask.
Oh, what? Oh, most of the shows I go to, or most of the shows I set up at, are less vintage. And matter of fact, that's probably one of the reasons I set up at those shows is because the the promoter of the show has reached out to me say, hey Chris, I need more vintage here. Do you mind taking a couple tables? And they kind of know what I'm doing, and selling cards to buy other cards. But if, for instance, I have a friend that sets up, and what he does is he brings a lot of his stuff, and and everybody seems interested. Even the ones that are there for newer stuff, they'll stop for a second and say, "Ooh, man," and then they'll walk on by. I mean, they tend to treat the vintage cases with a little bit of respect for the most.
Okay. Hmm.
Uh, but I get this. Oh, that's sweet, but I don't go for that stuff. I'm a, do you have any Lou Bobs, or do you have any Julios or Bobby Witts or that kind of stuff? But
Okay.
but no, it's probably I set up at a show earlier this year that was about 50-50, and those are sweet for me. But mostly it's 75-25 or 80-20 that I set up at.
Okay. What would you say the demographic on YouTube as far as content creators go is most of the guys are like just over over 40 years old, I would say. Most of them. 35 over. Would you say that that's the same as far as people buying your vintage cards? It's like 35 and over mainly, or have you been seeing more 20 somethings interested in buying?
Well, so you say the most YouTubers are over 40 or something like that, but not most of the watchers. I mean, you got a lot of these guys that are watching YouTube that are watching people rip new packs, and I might have 1,000 subscribers or something like that because I show cards, but there might be a guy that rips a pack of Immaculate that gets 100,000 views. So there's a lot more. I think there's a lot more younger guys, but that are watching YouTube than we give credit for. But as far as going to stop and buy my stuff,
Hmm.
it's people. It's either people uh, dipping their toe in the water of vintage that are younger, uh, or it's the older guys looking for player runs or looking, that are trying to. I get a different kind of crowd because I don't have a lot of look through boxes, and if that I take. If I took more look through boxes, I think I'd have a lot more of the older crowd. But I most of my stuff that I have and that I show are graded stuff, and they're mid grades to low grades. So I think mine is over 50, 45, 50 years old or older.
Okay. Um, and then one last question about recently setting up. So what type this year? What type of vintage cars are moving for you the best? Are they low grade, high grade? Are they already graded, ungraded? What type of cars would you say you move the most of?
I move I move mostly graded cards
Okay.
of Hall of Famers. One, that's because that's who I bring. I like I say, I'm not a guy that will help you complete sets with commons. So I move a lot of Hall of Famers, and it's mid grade to, it's anywhere from a $40 card to a $500 card of a vintage Hall of Famer. And most of the stuff that I move is pre 1970. Um, you know, I'll I'll go through my 12-row box and I'll get a bunch of 1961s graded. One show I'll move that, but you got to understand if I move, so I take cases and like jewelry box cases, and they hold 36 cards if you lay them side by side. And you've seen them. You've seen some people try to put more in than that, but
Yeah.
I don't because one of the tough things for me is inventory. And so, I went to a show. I put up 5 cases. There's 36, there's 36 cards in a case. So you're talking, 5 times 30, you're talking, there's 150 plus, I'm showing about 175, 180 cards on the table. Well, if I go through 60, if I sell 60 cards, by the end of the show, I got to be putting a bunch of cards in that.
Yeah.
So if I move 50 cards in one day, that's a big show for me. I mean, that's a huge show. And and it depends on the card, of course, but I'll have somebody sitting there and they'll buy 10 cards at a time. And that depletes my cases just a little bit. And I got to work a little bit to try to refill those.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's great to sell 10 cards at a time, but like you said, like they're gonna want a bundle price. So not only are you maybe losing a bigger percentage per card, like you said, you have to find replacement. Is that hard sometimes to guys that want to bundle that many cards to give them such a huge discount, or are you just like, okay, it is what it is. I want to sell these cards.
Well, one, it depends. I don't need to sell a card to feed my family.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, if I got a good rapport with somebody, I look at it like these cards cost me nothing except grading fees. The ones I have right now. Right now, in my selling, my dealer mentality, most all of these cards are coming from my collection that I didn't spend money on. Uh, I didn't spend money on. I mean, I just, I picked them up when I was 10 years old or 12 years old, and the cost was nothing. So I'm selling a Eddie Matthews, 56 Eddie Matthews for $40 or $50. To me, that's profit minus, I take away the grading fees, the rest is profit. But yes, I'm going to get this year, I'm getting right now to where I think I'm going to become like a true dealer when I'm setting up at shows. I've never considered myself a dealer, except I when I think of a dealer, I think of somebody buying a card and then taking that card and trying to make money on it, flipping in slow motion. Uh, and I have to now, my hardest thing is going to be getting inventory.
Hmm.
So there's wholesalers out there. There's people, and I recently came across a couple because a famous dealer next to me had retired, or next close to me had retired, and he introduced me to wholesalers. And what I got to do is buy cards from them and be able to sell them and make a profit. If not,
Well,
my dealing days will be over.
yeah. That's pretty cool that you're going through this transition. Like you said, it's a little bit scary though. Let's get right into the crux of some of the video. Of first off, you were actually in a live stream as a watcher, and we started talking about dealers, and the person said dealers are bad for the hobby, and this isn't. I want to first say this isn't the first time I've heard somebody say this. Now, maybe they're just saying it for attention, but do you think dealers are bad for the hobby, Chris, as a dealer?
So some of my favorite YouTubers have put down dealers at times in a way. I don't know if they feel like they're doing it or not, but I also know these same people have friends that are dealers.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I have to me this baseball hobby, baseball card hobby. I got different sets of group. I have the best time being on YouTube. I have the best time going to the national, shaking hands, hugging people, making fun of you, making fun of whoever. That's great. but I also get to spend. I go set up at these shows, and and I don't know. Back in the day when I first started a franchise that I owned, I'd go to these home shows, and they'd go from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, and you'd sit there and you'd get loopy, and but you're there with other dealers sitting at tables, and you become friends with them. Well, that's the same thing at these card shows. These other dealers, a lot of times you get there early, you make trades early, you get to know the dealers, and I have fun with them. I mean, that's another section that I'm enjoying this baseball card hobby, is my friendships that I've created with these dealers and stuff. And yeah, I mean, there's some. I have bad memories. I mean, I remember going to a card show, and somebody tried to take advantage of me, or even card shops back in the day. A kid goes in a card shop, and
Yeah.
and the guy says, I'll buy that Jerry Kuzman rookie off of you, but Jerry Kuzman wasn't that good. I'll give you $10 for it. No, he doesn't say anything about the Nolan Ryan sitting next to it, on that picture that, makes that car. So you hear of all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I don't think dealers are bad for the hobby. Matter of fact, I think they're good for the hobby. Even dealers watch this stuff too. Dealers, when you got Mike Moynihan saying, I never pay sticker price. Well, if I saw Mike Moynihan coming up to my table, I would switch my stuff really quick and raise my prices on my card, sell it to him, and then maybe he thought he got a good deal. But no, you hear that all the time, that never pay sticker price. Well, if I got a good rapport with if I have a good rapport with somebody, I'll never make them pay sticker price. There's more times than not that I'll have a card listed for $200, and there'll be a younger person say, "Hey, would you take 190 for that?" And I'll look at them and I say, "I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take 180 for that," especially if they're with their mom or their dad, that kind of stuff. And I don't mind. I love it when a young person comes up and they're looking for a George Brett card, because that's who they've heard their dad talk about, and they're with their mom, and they get the exact amount of money that I have pressed on the card, and I know that card must mean something to that kid, and he'll say, "Here, I'd like that George Brett." Well, then that's when I have time to educate a little bit, because I'm on that other side of the table more than I'm on my side of the table, and I'll tell that kid, I'll say, "Listen, there's probably you go to any of the guys around here that are dealing, there's probably a little wiggle room on those cards. So ask them, do this, because it's hard for them to say, it's hard for them to throw out a number. So I always tell them, just ask that dealer, what's the best price you can do on that George Brett card right there?" And I said, that's a good way to break the ice. And if they don't come down off of that price, go to another table. You might see it somewhere else. And I tell you what, I wish I was a 12-year-old kid walking a show with my mom anymore. And I'd go up to a dealer and I'd say, George Brett was my dad's favorite player. He died 2 days ago. What's the best you can do on that card? Well, I'll get a lot of those cards pretty cheap, whether my dad was alive or not. But just it's not us against them. It's not an us against them world, because we need the dealers. We need people selling cards. If we're collecting cards, if it wasn't for it, it would be tough for us. And I tell you what, I'd much rather buy a card face to face than I would from somebody off of eBay. I just would. That's just me.
I think one spot, I might be wrong on this, but I think one spot is a lot of people do use eBay, obviously.
Oh yeah.
And I think people sometimes get in an auction, and they're maybe about to get a great deal on a card that they really want, and the card, they just get outbid by $5, and I think their first thought is a reseller must have beat me to that bid. Like you know what I'm saying? Like I think there's a perception out there that you didn't get beat by a collector, you got beat by a reseller. Do you think people
Well,
think that way too?
I do, but take this into effect here. We got a lot of buddies that do YouTube stuff,
Yep.
and they have sniper
Software or whatever you.
software that they're doing the same thing. I mean, they're oh I put my little sniper software in it, and this you got some guy like me that's bidding on a card that has no technology savvy in his head, and I end up losing to somebody that didn't even look at the video, but had or look at the card for the last 30 minutes, but has some kind of sniper software and takes it away from me. That's why I like buying it. That's like why I like buying at a show. You can get sniped at a show, but that snipe goes something like this. You walk up to a table, you see a card. Ooh, I like that card. You make a bid on that card, and the dealer says, "Ooh, that's a little too low." And then you walk away from the table, and you're gone for about 15 minutes, and you say, I think I ought to buy that card." And you walk back, and that card is now gone. You've been sniped, but you sniped yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just I don't have a problem with the sniping. I don't have problems. If I don't have problems with dealer overpricing cards. I hear people say, well, they won't even come down on their price. Why even bring a card if you don't want to sell it? Okay, I hear that. I hear that all the time. Well, my answer, I bring a 1954 Red Heart set to sell. I have it priced about $800 over what it's valued, maybe even $1,000 over what it's valued. I'm not in a big hurry to sell it. I love that card. I do not have another Red Heart Mickey Mantle card. I want one, but uh, I bring that so people can come. You don't get to see that. You don't get to see that very often, especially at a show. I
Right.
bring it. I have it priced for that, and I will tell them, listen, that's a little bit over a price, and it's my set's probably about a 5.5 average, and but I tell them it's a little overpriced, but I'm not going to go down on it. And if
Yeah.
they want it, if they want it worse than I do, they can buy it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not going down on that going bringing my price down on that card, but I see these mantles, these 52 tops mantles, and these guys, they got them priced $5,000-$10,000 over it. And I cannot, it can't come out of my mouth saying, golly, you're about $5,000 too high on this, because if they don't want to sell it, they don't have to sell it.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, uh, so I don't know. There's a lot of, I just don't like, I don't like it when we see it's an us against them thing. They want to get the maximum amount they can for a card, probably, and you want to get it for the cheapest amount. And,
Exactly.
and to me, I think we need to take some of the lessons we learned as a kid, learning to trade cards and learning that way, and bring some of those lessons. Meaning, if you feel good about it and I feel good about it, I don't need a book or a computer to tell me what that card's worth.
That makes sense. Well, let's ask one more question that I hear a lot. I hear the word flipper thrown around a lot on YouTube. He's a flipper. Is a flipper a dealer or is a flipper not a dealer? I think I hear that word so much that it's hard to tell the difference sometimes. So what's your opinion? Is it the same thing?
My again, it's my take, and sometimes I got weird takes on some stuff. But Flipper has in my mind, in my mind, if they stay, this is how selfish I am. If they stay out of my realm, I don't care. I don't. Uh, the Flipper gets a is a bad word to me because I think it's somebody that doesn't know the history of the card, and that might be a generalization, stereotype, but or they don't care about the card. and they know money in, money out, and as long as they make a little bit of money, they don't they don't see it as they don't see it as a hobby. They see it as, and that could be a bad, that could be a bad stereotype that I have in my mind, but I
Yeah.
do. I look at somebody, a flipper, that that doesn't know they don't know the history maybe, and there might be a few of them out there, but the general flipper that I think of being a flipper is somebody that just, okay, I got this, I bought it for this. Oh, I see I can sell it for this. Oh, it's Joe DiMaggio. I don't even know who Joe DiMaggio is, but here you go. And I do not, I'm not putting down anybody that has figured out how to make money, make a living, or make money doing something. But I don't look at a flipper like I do a dealer.
Okay.
I think a flipper sees, checks and sees what the value is now, and I think a dealer uh, has known about the history of something, and uh, you know, I I think you got a chance, if you don't watch out, you might be the last one holding the card as a flipper, and you can lose money. Uh,
Hmm.
and anybody can lose money, but I think before you get into something, you should probably know the history of it. But that's not up to me to decide. That's
Yep.
up, that's up to somebody else. But that, to me, that's the difference between a flipper and a dealer.
Okay. I'm similar thought process, but the when I was growing up, Flipper was a Dolphins name. So
Yeah.
yeah, but let's get into another major topic that I had that I wanted to talk to you about because if I came to you and we're friends, we talk all the time. If I came to you and I said, "Man, I'm starting to look, I'm starting to see Clemente cards I can't even afford anymore, or couldn't afford if I don't save up for a whole year's budget." Um, I'm thinking myself about being a dealer. What advice would you give a friend that's a collector that's thinking about becoming a dealer in 2024? What would you be your advice?
So my first thing is to stick with what you know. Um, y- you stay in your lane, stick with what you know, and be good at that. And
Okay.
maybe expand out when you're 100% sure it's a good idea to buy another card, to sell another card. Um, and you know, it might hurt going after some cards that you want. You may have to give up some stuff that you want. But if you were going to become a dealer, just make sure you stay on top of the game. Meaning, don't don't promise something you can't deliver. Uh, but just 100% make sure it's something that you're as knowledgeable about than the person that you're dealing with, and always be honest. Don't sell your integrity.
So okay, so your advice is kind of like, so if we use me as an example, my best knowledge base is either Clemente cards or 1960s tops cards. Your advice to me would be take your knowledge and use it for your benefit. So look for advantages with 60s cards or Clemente cards, and maybe baby step from where you're knowledgeable. Take your time. Don't jump in the pool immediately. Basically, is that what you're saying? Kind of.
Sort of, but your knowledge is, don't sell yourself short on that. I'm the only one that doesn't think you're the brightest one around. Uh, but you have an encyclopedia to research real quick. You can text, send a text out to baseball collector and say, "Oh, I got a chance. I look at this. I got a chance to buy this card. What do you think?" Um, you got such a resource, that you can look into. You have dealer friends. I know you have dealer friends that that would also let you know whether that was a good buy and yes, or hey, you get on the phone and you say, hey Mike, I Mike Moynihan, I have found a 1952 tops um, Eddie Matthews, and I do you want that thing? I can get it for $2,000. Okay, if he said you can sell that way, you can look out for other people. There's all kinds of stuff you can do, but I would hate for you to I'm gonna become a dealer, so I'm gonna go spend the money on I'm gonna buy this some guy's complete storage shed
Yeah.
and not know how much time that's going to be to sort and go through. But you have the resources to find that out. But I just think that if you go set up at a show, you're going to sell vintage cards. You know why get into Pokemon if you don't collect Pokemon? Why get into something else? Do what you know.
Okay, that's good advice. So would you tell somebody to do eBay, Facebook, card shows, all the above, or what advice would you tell somebody that's just starting off? What route to go on? Because there's all these different ways you can sell, right?
Again, know yourself. You know, I I couldn't list 100 cards on eBay and be able to uh, carry out all the transactions unless I warn people. Listen, I'm an old dude that's really slow at this kind of stuff. So I would not get into selling on eBay. On the other hand, you got different skills than I do. That might work for you. But before you do that, you need to reach out. I would suggest you reach out to somebody that does that. For nowadays, it's hard for any dealer. It's hard for any dealer that's making a living off of this not to use eBay, not to use these Facebook forums, not to not to use whatnot. Not there's all kinds of stuff to use. Um, there's at your fingertips, but make sure that's you. Don't say, I see too many. I've seen too many people. Uh, yeah, my father-in-law was a bank president, and
Mhm.
somebody would come in and they'd have a great year farming 40 acres, just have a great year, and they'd come in and say, "Hey, I need to borrow more money," and he'd ask them why. Well, I want to buy 20 cattle. I want to start raising cattle. And he would say, "You had such a great year this year just row cropping. Why do you want to raise cattle?" Well, I just want to get bigger. I think I can do it. Well, you've never done it before. Your family's always been row croppers. Now you're wanting to, yeah, I want to branch out. I want to do this. Well, they'd come in the next year and they'd have a terrible year. And I see too many people like that. They see somebody else doing something. Oh, he's doing it. Why can't I do this? Well, I see guys like Kevin Kennedy and Craig and Holly and Ash and Stan's Vintage Cards, and I see them setting up at shows. And I thought, okay, I'm just as smart as Stan. Why can't I be? I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna buy $500,000 in inventory. You know, well, I just got out of my lane and I just put a lot of pressure on myself.
Yeah.
So, you know, just because you see somebody else doing it doesn't mean you don't know what they went through before that or the knowledge they've obtained before that. And so I would say assess your abilities and then don't sell yourself short, but stay in your lane, dip your toe in, get it right, and keep doing it. Keep doing the right thing and get good at doing the right thing.
Yeah, that's good advice. I help set up. I have a friend that comes to my church, and I help him set up at the Pittsburgh Card Show. And he's older, and he is all memorabilia, all autographs, game used jerseys, a lot of Pittsburgh related stuff. And he's like, I want to get out of this business. He's like, can you just buy me out? I just help him set up. He's like, will you just buy me out and take over this? And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, well, obviously, yeah, this could be a great opportunity. I'm gonna get I might get it for 30% of the value or whatever, and there's margin there. But in my opinion, that's not my memorabilia and autographs is not my passion. So to, I think you made a good point earlier. Is sometimes it's nice to buy things that are your passion because even if maybe you can't sell it, you still love what you have. You know what I'm saying? So kind of relates to me a little bit with what happened with that. I turned him down as far. I told him I would help him, but I told him I would never buy out his storage unit.
Right.
Yeah.
Smart move.
So look, you brought up a little bit though about Stan with maybe he has a bigger budget. I am curious. What's your advice for somebody that's already maybe a dealer, but they're working their way up? And have you ever seen something that you felt was a great opportunity, a high dollar opportunity, you didn't have the budget for it? Now, what advice would you give somebody? Would you give them the advice of we'll figure out a way to get the money because you know it's going to turn back around for you, or would you give them the advice of try to get a partial part of that collection? Like what advice would you give somebody that has a great opportunity but they don't have the money?
Well, you know, that's happened to me before. That kind of stuff has happened to me before, where I just didn't have the money to pull the trigger. Now I'd figure out a way to make it work. I mean, I'd have means to figure out how to make it work, but sometimes you just got to walk away. Uh, I, sleepless nights are worth something. I'd hate for somebody to buy something, even though they know they can sell it and make a profit, but you end up, man, you end up nervous. You end up, did I make you questioning yourself, sleepless nights, that kind of stuff. Um, there's some value into saying, okay, I can't do it, walk away. But if you're 100% sure, you know, check with a buddy to see if they want to invest in with you. For instance, um, remember all those basketballs that I had? I had 95 autographed basketballs that I bought in a collection.
Yep.
And I looked at them and they were beautiful, all these Hall of Fame autographs. And there were some cards. He had some cards there too, but it was after the event of buying these basketballs. Well, I'd already made a commitment to my wife that I wasn't going to spend a certain amount of money.
Uh-huh.
And I saw these Hall of Fame basketballs, and I called a buddy of mine and I said, listen, you want to go into half on these basketballs? It's going to cost you like $4,000 or something. And he said, sure. He's all for it. And so it made it easier for me to buy the basketballs. I thought it was going to be a cakewalk selling the basketballs. So I loaded up my first show. I loaded up 95 basketballs, 94 basketballs and a soccer ball. I went to a card show. I sold one ball at the first card show. You know how hard it is carrying in 94 basketballs in cases?
Wow.
It was a piece of work. I sold one ball that day, and it was the soccer ball. So
Wow.
I had to load up 94 basketballs and send them back home. Then I'd had to take those back to a show. Knowing what I know now, I probably wouldn't have bought those basketballs. I'd have stayed in my lane. But I couldn't stay in my lane on this one because I had to buy the basketballs to be able to buy the cards.
Mm-hmm.
But I would not have been able to make that purchase had I not reached out to somebody else to see if they were willing to go in with me on it. And I was going to do all there was some stuff I had to give up to be able to do that, like, do all the work with them, take them to shows, that kind of stuff. But, you know, my, I don't know, being where I am now, in my own life and security and stuff, I probably, if I couldn't buy it right now, even though I know it'd be a great move, I probably
Right.
would. I probably wouldn't do it.
Okay. I think the thing I'm hearing over and over again with you, and it's something that I really didn't think about until we talked, I know it's a business word, is networking. You talked about how when you get stuck in a situation and you're brand new, to reach out to somebody who's done it for a while. You talked about just now of if you can't afford something, to network with somebody who you know that's in their realm. I think that's a really good takeaway that I think people should listen to is you're not in it alone sometimes and stuff like this. You got to network, you got to have friends. I know network sounds like it's more business, not friendship, but you got to have people you know that are more expert than you. I think that's a really good takeaway.
And the another small takeaway is this: that you got to build that. You got to build to have a network. You have to build some trust, and
Yeah.
so that also means if you're a dealer, you're going to be selling to collectors and other dealers and stuff too. You don't have to hit a home run every time.
Yep.
I see dealers out there. I'm around some that has to hit a home run every time. They have to win every deal, um, and eventually, you're not going to be needed if you're that person. I don't need your cards. I can get that card somewhere else. So you got to build that trust in that network, and just stay who you are. Don't try to be fake. Like the Harley Race, the wrestler back in the day. I heard him talk one time, and he said, "Quit trying to be plastic. Be real. Don't be plastic."
Funny. That's a good takeaway. So kind of on that same realm, if I've heard guys say that my mentality is I want to make the most money I can. So if I have a collection come to me and they're interested in selling it, my mindset is I want the least amount. If it's a $10,000 collection, I'm gonna start at 2,000. And then I got more profit margin. But there's obviously some issues with that of is that morally wrong to in the card world to go that route. So how do you take on that as a dealer? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I get it. I mean, I do get people like that, but I don't like it. Um, I don't like it. I if you can still be fair, you can be fair. I would just think in your head this, and whoever's watching this, all whatever 7 people might be watching this later on. You watch a lot of people on YouTube.
Yeah.
Who would you trust? Who would you trust on YouTube to you go in and tell your wife if something happens to me today, I want you to call this number up. I want you to call this person up, and I want you to trust what he does. And if he buys your stuff, just trust him. We've watched enough YouTube channels that if you watch them closely and you know their personality and stuff, you know who you wouldn't take stuff to. I mean, I've seen some guys, say, I know I got this for 25 cents on the dollar. I got this $4,000 card from this guy at a garage sale, and I bought it for $5, and I turned around and sold it for $4,000. Now, I don't want to deal with that person. I mean, I get it. I understand why they want to make a huge profit, but that's to me that's hitting the home run every time. That's the guy that's hitting the home run every time. And no, I'm not going to pay 100 if your wife calls me because she kicked you out of the house and she got your cards. No, I'm not going to pay her 100% of the value of your cards because I got to make somebody's got to make a profit too.
Right.
Okay? But I don't have to send my kids off to college because your wife's made the mistake of calling me. You
Yeah,
know,
I think that's a good point. I've also heard dealers say if you treat people right, you're gonna get more business. You're gonna get people to come back. You're gonna get the word out there that you have a good name. So I've heard people say it only snowballs and helps you in the long run. If you give people a sour taste, now you have a bad name. You know what I mean? So
Look
I
at
don't
it.
know.
Look at it like this. This is a best piece of advice that I got one time when I went into business. You treat somebody good, they're going to tell somebody else. You treat somebody bad, they're going to tell 10 somebody else's. And you know, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that person.
Yeah. So all right. So the opposite. Somebody comes, they're savvy, they have some good stuff. They're a tough negotiator. In general, what percentage you have to get off of what you feel comps are to feel comfortable with? All right, I'll buy it at 80%. I'm comfortable with 20%. What margin do you have to? Do you feel like if it's something that you feel can move? Obviously, So
Sure.
I know it depends on the item and blah blah blah,
It
but
it it surely depends. It does depend on the item and it depends on the player. Uh, you know, I there's cards that I don't mind paying 85% for if I'm going to be reselling those cards. I'll pay 120% if it's a card that I really want. I mean, I will. I won't if I'm at a show looking for a card and I see something I want and they have it 10% over. Okay, if they won't come down on it, I understand. I might walk away. I might. But I also might say, no, I want that card. I just raised the value of that card up, by giving it. But if a savvy dealer came to me, and wanted to move some stuff, one, I would have to think, okay, why in the heck does he need to move the stuff?
yeah,
Is he having trouble moving the stuff? What makes me better than him knowing saying that I can move the stuff? But I don't mind paying 80% on a Mickey Mantle card, but I'm probably not going to pay 80% on a Al Kaline card or Hoyt Wilhelm or somebody like that. Um, you know, I'm not going to pay. I'm not going to pay 80% on a new card. I'm not going to pay unless it's somebody I want, like Bobby Witt. I'm not prospecting Bobby Witt, but I'm buying some Bobby Witt cards. One because he's plays on the Kansas City Royals, and that's where that's my rooting interest. But if somebody's going to come and I have and have this big old box of stuff, first thing I'm going to do is ask them what they want for it. If
yeah,
they have a price, they've already talked to somebody and they know what they want. And there's some very smart people out there that they say, okay, I want $5,000 for all this. You know, there's some smart people that might have watched a couple YouTube videos and say, well, I know this card is, or they look on eBay and they say, oh, this, I can get 140 for it, or I can get $7,000 for this $5,000 box. Okay, go right ahead. I thank you for thinking about me, but no, I don't. I can't. Sometimes you have to educate them and hope that and hope that they listen to you. Hope that they think you're giving them the right advice. I've disappointed so many people when people have brought to me a really great binder of 1991, 92 cards, and they're just beautiful looking cards, and they've taken well care of them, and they want $5,000 for a binder that might be worth $300.
yeah.
They're well educated and stuff. They it was worth something to them years ago, and now it's not worth so much. But to answer your question, yeah, first I ask them what they want for it, and then if I really want the stuff, then I'll probably pay if it's bulk stuff anywhere from 65 to 80%.
Okay. Um, to add to add on to that a little bit, real quick. You seem like you're more old school than most. Now, I imagine when people come to you with stuff, I imagine I can't see you pulling out your phone and checking eBay recent sales or VCP. Do you actually use technology at the table, or do you just go everything off the top of your head?
I get my abacus out, and so yeah. When somebody brings something up to me, I'll ask them. What's the comps on these?
Okay.
Because the comps are just a phone click away from me, and they're not gonna. I'm gonna know well enough that on most things that if they're close or not, and if they're higher end or not. I get so, I and I also I do this at shows too. I'll listen if somebody comes up and say, "Are you buying?" I usually will say to save them some time. I'll usually say yes, but only vintage, only vintage cards. But if it's a young kid that comes up, I'll try to work out a deal. I seriously will. I'll try to work out a deal. I picked up an Austin Riley card from a kid that just had the saddest eyes in the world because his big brother was trading, and if he'd have stayed there longer, I'd have probably ended up giving him a '56 mantle for Austin Riley. But anyway, yeah, I will if I have to use comps on eBay comps on sold listings because a lot of people get that. So many people come to me and say it comps out at $100. Well, if you look, it's listed at $100, but if you go to sold items, it might be $70 or whatever, and
Yeah.
that's when you try to educate there and you say, look, it just sold for but I hate doing that. And when I'm standing there at the table and I know I have my cards priced really really good, I hate it when somebody gets out their phone and starts looking at comps, on a card that I have listed lower than comps.
Um, you at least you put your price on the front of the card. You're not that guy who doesn't price their cards with the sticker and then you go up to the case and you have to ask the guy what each price is. You have your price on there, right?
I do, and I have a friend that sets up with me at a show, and he always does well, and he's vintage, and he doesn't have his prices on most of the time,
It drives
and
me.
it just drives me nuts, and I just tell him, and even when he gets cards that he has prices on, he doesn't sell them for that price. So, he'll say, "Yeah, don't go by those prices. I haven't comped them for a while." So you might, and I always wonder how the hell you get that to work, but he gets it to work. But
Uh,
yes, and I get so frustrated. But I hear some of my YouTube buddies say, "Well, if they don't have prices on it, I'm just going to walk away."
yeah,
Well, if I see a Satchel Paige Leaf and it's the only one at the show,
right.
I'm gonna at least inquire. I'm not gonna I'm not, we got some buddies that, they'll dig their heels in the sand and say, I'll just walk away from somebody like that. Well, not me. I might inquire. I might be wasting my time and the guy might be pissing me off, but I'm not gonna hurt my chance of getting a card because I'm too stubborn.
Yeah, I saw a guy at the Pittsburgh show. He put the price sticker on the back of every card. So I, I'm thinking he has them in his head. Maybe I'm like, what's the price on that? So he flips it over, and then I said, what's it? I'm like, you put the sticker on, you put it on the front. Like, come on, like, what is this game you're playing with me? Like, I got so frustrated. I left. I was just like, this is stupid.
Well, I'm gonna show you a card and show you what I get all the time, just real quick.
All right, good.
So, okay, so this is one of the cards that I have, in my box, and it's an Eddie Matthews. And see where I have the sticker?
Uh-huh.
I get so many people that think, "Hey, can you get that? Can you get that out of that plastic?" Because so many dealers put a sticker over the corners, so they don't trust that I have they don't think that I have the corner on there, and then
Uh,
and I don't I don't go by the grade of the card, but if it's PSA 7 or a PSA 8, it's not going to have a rounded corner on it. But I don't mind. They're the ones buying it,
yeah.
but
I've heard a horror story where somebody put a sticker where the pinhole was, and somebody bought it. They got home, took the sleeve off where the sticker was at, and saw the pinhole. And it was, I think it was a 1.5. So there had to be something wrong with it to get it a 1.5. But yeah, I could see why people are careful. Makes sense.
Sure, sure. But
Um,
I don't, as a buyer, I don't
yeah,
like it. I don't like it when they don't have the price on the front. I don't like it when the price is on the back because I'm I might be walking around pretty quick. They may be talking to somebody else,
you're right.
and if they're talking to somebody else, I don't want to wait 15 minutes and ask and then find out that the thing is, way overpriced. And
Yeah.
so that's what I don't like about it.
Well, Chris, this was very informative. It was a lot of fun. I hope some other people enjoy it, get something out of it. I appreciate you coming on today, man.
Well, thanks for letting me on here. I know I've been sneezing and got runny nose and not talking very good, but I
No,
like talks like this because it's dealers aren't always bad guys, and it's not always us against them. We're both living in this hobby world together, and I think we need both to exist.
yeah, I think there are guys out there that are on the fence uh, about being a part-time dealer collector. I think there are guys out there, and they're scared. They're scared to lose money or that it won't work out. And hopefully, maybe if somebody was on the fence, they watch this and maybe they take the plunge to be a part-time dealer, or maybe get some cards in their collection they never thought they could have. So, but hopefully,
I totally agree with that because if there's when somebody says on YouTube that, oh, I never will be able to afford that card. Well, there are some cards like that. The Honus Wagner cards,
yeah.
but there's not too many cards that I couldn't afford. Now, I have to be willing to trade everything that I have, but you can use this. You can become a dealer for a little bit, sell some cards, use that money to buy the particular card that you want.
hmm Exactly. Well, thank you for anybody that watched this. We appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next video. See you later, Chris.
Thanks a lot.